In a quiet village where secrets are buried deep, one man held the key to everything until he was silenced forever. But what if the storyteller himself is hiding the darkest truth? Hercule Poirot is about to uncover a betrayal so shocking it will leave you speechless. The village of King's Abbot, tucked away in the rolling hills of rural England, appears at first glance to be the epitome of peaceful serenity. A slow, lazy river winds its way through the town, and the cobbled streets are lined with charming stone cottages, their thatched roofs glistening in the morning sun. It is a place where time seems to stand still, yet, like all perfect facades, it hides a dark underbelly. Hercule Poirot, the legendary detective who has solved mysteries from the grand streets of Paris to the exotic corners of the world, has chosen this small village as his sanctuary. Retired now, he lives alone in a modest cottage at the edge of town, his days consumed by cultivating a beautiful garden of tulips and daisies, which he tends to with an obsessive precision. His days are quiet, almost too quiet for a man of his talents. He often finds himself longing for the excitement, the thrill of solving puzzles, yet his mind tells him he must be content. But Dr. James Shepherd, the local physician and our narrator, knows something the others do not. As he goes about his morning routine, preparing for another day of caring for the villagers, he is unaware that his life and the fate of his quiet town is about to be irrevocably altered. He steps out into his garden, greeting his neighbor, Poirot, with the customary pleasantries. Yet behind Poirot's calm, observant eyes, there is something deeper, a restlessness that Shepherd does not quite understand. Poirot seems distracted. The air feels thick with an unspoken tension, as if the village itself is holding its breath. For all the calm around him, Shepherd cannot shake the feeling that something terrible is about to unfold. The very essence of the village, so meticulously peaceful, seems to hide a secret that will soon be uncovered. As the day progresses, a feeling of unease settles over King's Abbot. Small events seem out of place: an argument overheard at the pub, an anxious glance exchanged in the marketplace, the seemingly innocuous disappearance of a letter from Roger Ackroyd's office. These are the first cracks in the facade, tiny but telling. Later that evening, Dr. Shepherd receives a phone call from Flora Ackroyd, Roger Ackroyd's niece. She is distressed, her voice shaking with fear. "Dr. Shepherd, you must come at once. Something terrible has happened." She hangs up before he can ask more. Suddenly, the night is filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant sound of hooves on the cobblestone street, echoing like the ticking of an unseen clock. Shepherd hurries to the Ackroyd estate, his heart pounding with a growing sense of dread. The discovery of the crime. Arriving at the grand Ackroyd estate, Shepherd is led by a nervous Flora to the study, where her uncle Roger had been found. The room is dark, lit only by a single flickering candle. As they enter, a cold chill fills the air. Roger Ackroyd lies slumped in his chair, stabbed through the heart, his face frozen in a grimace of terror. The room is locked from the inside, the windows bolted shut. No one could have entered, or so it seems. The dagger gleaming ominously in the dim lightlies beside him, almost as if placed carefully. A perfect crime, but something about it feels wrong. Too perfect, too staged. Shepherd, ever the man of logic, dismisses the feeling. But Poirot, when called in, sees the truth in an instant. As Poirot steps into the room, his sharp eyes miss nothing. His usual calm demeanor is replaced with an intensity that Shepherd has never seen. "Ah, my friend," he mutters, almost to himself, "this is not the work of an amateur." He examines the scene with care, his small mustache twitching in thought. The game is afoot. Cliffhanger. Just as Poirot begins to examine the letter on Ackroyd's desk, a loud bang echoes from outside. Shepherd rushes to the window, only to find the village plunged into complete darkness. The power has gone out. But then, something strange happens through the darkness. He catches a glimpse of a figure running away from the house. The shadowy figure moves quickly, disappearing into the fog, leaving only a cold, unnatural silence behind. Poirot turns to Shepherd with a grave look in his eyes. Whoever did this is still here. And just as Shepherd opens his mouth to respond, A second phone call rings in the study, the sound deafening in the stillness. Poirot picks up the receiver, his face darkening as he listens to the voice on the other end. The last words he hears are, "The killer is one of you." The line goes dead. The camera holds on Poirot's face as the room seems to close in around him. There's no escaping the terror that has begun. Cliffhanger end. A sense of dread fills the air. Poirot knows the town is filled with lies, but what's more terrifying is that he now suspects the murderer is hiding in plain sight, someone close to him, someone he trusts. The chase has only just begun. The screen cuts to black, and the words, "To be continued." A disturbing letter. Roger Ackroyd, a wealthy and influential industrialist, has a secret. His fiancée, the beautiful but troubled Mrs. Ferrars, had recently died under mysterious circumstances, a death that was quickly ruled as a suicide. But there were whispers, rumors that the suicide wasn't as it seemed. That night, Roger receives a disturbing letter, an anonymous message that completely shatters his calm. "Your fiancée didn't die by accident. She was blackmailed into her own death." The letter reveals a hidden truth. Mrs. Ferrars was being blackmailed, and someone, somewhere, was pulling the strings, forcing her to take her own life. Roger is stunned. Who could have done this, and why would they target someone like Mrs. Ferrars? As he ponders this, the sense of dread grows heavy in the room. He burns the letter, fearful that the blackmailer is still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. But little does he know, that moment is already upon him. The murder, locked from the inside. The night falls dark and quiet over the Ackroyd estate, the winds whispering through the trees outside. Roger retreats to his study, his mind racing with the revelation in the letter. It's the first time he's felt truly afraid in years. As he sits in his study, his hand shakes as he reaches for his pen, about to write a letter to the authorities. But before he can finish, the door slams shut with a force that makes his heart leap. A shadow crosses the room-thin silence. A single, sharp scream echoes through the walls of the house. The next morning, Roger Ackroyd is found dead, his body slumped in a chair in his study. A dagger is plunged deep into his chest. The room, however, is locked from the inside, the windows bolted shut, and the only key to the door is found in his pocket. No signs of forced entry. The perfect locked room mystery. Who could have committed this brutal murder, and how? The mysterious phone call. The mystery deepens when, just hours after the discovery of the body, a strange phone call rings through the house. The voice on the other end is distorted, unrecognizable. Roger is alive. He isn't dead. The killer didn't get him. The line goes dead before anyone can respond. The call is chilling, almost as if someone is toying with the investigation. But Roger, is this a cruel joke? Or is there something deeper, darker at play? Who made the call, and why? Poirot, with his unshakable calm, arrives at the scene, the very air around him seeming to hum with the intensity of the case. Poirot enters. The game begins. The village is whispering about the murder of Roger Ackroyd, and the local constables are lost, fumbling in their attempts to unravel the mystery. Flora Ackroyd, Roger's niece, and the one person who stands to inherit his fortune, pleads with Poirot to investigate. Desperation and fear cloud her eyes, but there's something else lurking behind Thema's secret. Poirot, with his usual quiet brilliance, agrees to take on the case. His mind sharpens, and his famed little gray cells begin to churn. He understands the gravity of the situation. A locked room, a mysterious phone call, a dead man with a life full of secrets. Everything is interconnected, and he can already feel the hidden threads pulling the truth closer. The suspects, each with their own reasons for wanting Roger dead, are laid before Poirot. Flora Ackroyd, the desperate niece, with a hidden financial need. She inherited nothing upon Mrs. Ferrars's death, but now. Geoffrey Raymond, the loyal and quiet secretary, with a past he keeps buried. Could he have been hiding a personal connection to the victim, or is he just an innocent bystander caught in the web of lies? Parker, the butler, who knows too much and watches too closely. He has an icy calm, but the truth he holds is as dangerous as it is elusive. Ralph Peyton, Roger's stepson, who has disappeared from the estate. His mysterious absence raises suspicion. Did he know about his father's secret? Was he involved? Ursula Bourne, the maid, whose past is shrouded in mystery. She claims to know nothing, but how much of the story is she hiding? Poirot is methodical. He begins his investigations, not with force or bluster, but with his usual quiet observation and delicate questioning. The tension rises as Poirot subtly guides each person into revealing just a little more of what they know and what they're trying to keep hidden. Cliffhanger. Poirot calls the suspects together in the study where the murder occurred. The tension in the room is palpable. Each one of them knows they are walking the thin line between truth and lies. Poirot's eyes sweep over them, as though seeing through their facades, understanding every fear, every guilty twitch. He pauses, turns to Flora, and asks, "Miss Ackroyd, I must ask you, what was in the letter that your uncle received last night?" The room goes deathly quiet. Flora's face turns pale. Her eyes dart nervously, and for a moment she seems on the verge of breaking. Just as she opens her mouth to speak, there is a loud knock at the door. Poirot raises his hand, signaling everyone to stay still. He opens the door, and standing there, in the shadows, is a figure none of them expected: Ralph Peyton. But there's something off about him. His clothes are disheveled, his eyes wild with fear. He whispers, "I know who the killer is, but you have to listen carefully. The truth is..." Before he can finish, a gunshot rings out in the distance, the sound echoing through the walls of the house. "What was that?" Poirot asks, turning toward the others, but Ralph has already disappeared into the darkness. And now, the game has truly begun. Cliffhanger end. The screen goes black as the gunshot fades. The question lingers: who fired the shot? And what does Ralph know that is so dangerous? He's willing to risk everything to reveal it. The mystery deepens. Who can they trust? The clock is ticking, and Poirot must now race against time to solve the crime before it claims yet another victim. Poirot peels back the layers. The game is in full motion now. The eerie stillness of the Ackroyd estate has been shattered, and the weight of the mystery presses down on everyone involved. Poirot, with his usual cool precision, begins to peel back the layers of lies and secrets that surround the murder of Roger Ackroyd. He is calm, but inside, his mind races like a predator circling its prey, his little gray cells working tirelessly. Every detail counts. He dissects the alibis of the prime suspects one by one, but there's something that doesn't sit right with him. Flora's story, innocent as it may seem, is full of holes. Why was she so quick to dismiss the idea of having an inheritance? Why the nervous twitches, the furtive glances every time she mentions her uncle's sudden death? And Geoffrey Raymond, the quiet secretary, with his unremarkable demeanor, looks like a man who has never done a dishonest thing in his life. But Poirot notices the tiniest details, a flicker of discomfort when asked about the night of the murder. Could he be hiding something? Then there's Parker, the ever-watchful butler. His stoic expression cracks only for a second as Poirot presses him. A shadow of guilt passes across his face as he mentions the time he left Roger alone to go retrieve something from the cellar. But was that the moment the killer struck? Or was there something else, something he's hiding behind that cold mask of professionalism? Each of their alibis falls apart under Poirot's relentless scrutiny, yet none of them break. They leave Abbot, who is telling the truth, and who is hiding something darker than they realize. The blackmail angle deepens. The mystery only grows more complicated as Poirot digs deeper into the blackmail angle. Why was Roger Ackroyd being blackmailed? What did he know about Mrs. Ferrars' death that made someone want to silence him? Poirot knows that someone in the house must have been involved in her death, but who? Was the blackmail just the beginning of a more intricate web of deceit that led to Roger's demise? Then, Poirot uncovers a key piece of evidence, a missing dagger. It had been a family heirloom, a decorative piece Roger had kept in his study. But now, it's gone, vanished without a trace. Could the murder weapon have been taken from the study, or did the killer have another plan all along? Why go to such lengths to remove such an important piece of evidence? The answer lies hidden in the past, and Poirot is determined to uncover it. A suspicious footprint in the Gardenia, single, muddy impression left in the soft earth near the window. The police had dismissed it at first, assuming it was nothing. But Poirot's mind sharpens. That footprint is more than a clue. It's a trail leading him to an unexpected revelation. Who was out in the garden that night? And why did they leave so little behind? The investigation takes another turn when a locked door trick is discovered. The door to Roger's study had been locked from the inside, yet the killer was able to leave. Was this some sort of trick, a secret passageway, a hidden mechanism in the walls? Poirot's brow furrows. The answer is there, just out of sight. He moves from clue to clue, but with each new discovery, he finds himself tangled in the web of lies that surround Roger's death. Dr. Shepard's behavior. Something's off. Amidst all this, there is something deeply unsettling about Dr. James Shepard. To the outside world, he's the calm, professional local physician, a man of reason and logic. But Poirot's sharp eye has noticed something strange in Shepard's behavior. Why is Shepard always a step too late? Why does he often seem to be in the right place at the wrong time? Why, after seeing the body of Roger Ackroyd, does he seem unnervingly calm? Is he really the perfect assistant, or is there something more sinister lurking beneath his composed exterior? Poirot watches him closely. Shepard's alibi for the night of the murder is solid, yet there's something in his eyes when he speaks of the night's events. An unsettling look, almost as if he knows more than he's letting on. Poirot doesn't jump to conclusions, but he begins to suspect that Dr. Shepard's role in this mystery might not be as innocent as it seems. The unraveling truth and the growing tension. As Poirot unravels the tangled web of deceptions, he realizes that this murder is not a simple case of jealousy or revenge. It's something much more calculated, much more devious. The blackmail, the missing dagger, the suspicious footprint, and the locked room puzzle all point to one thing. The murderer is hiding something bigger than just a motive. They are hiding a secret, something that could shatter everything, and Poirot is getting closer to it with each passing day. Then, just when the puzzle seems on the verge of completion, a new clue emerges, a tattered, blood-stained letter that has somehow been missed in all the commotion. The handwriting is unmistakable, it's Roger Ackroyd's. But the contents of the letter reveal a new, shocking twist. Ackroyd knew who was blackmailing him, and he was ready to confront them. The stakes have never been higher, and Poirot knows that the truth is within reach, but the closer he gets, the more dangerous things become. Someone is desperate to keep the truth buried, and they'll do anything to prevent Poirot from exposing it. The closer Poirot gets, the more the line between friend and foe begins to blur. The investigation reaches a new turning point. Poirot's mind, always sharp and calculating, starts to unravel a web of secrets that no one could have anticipated. As he digs deeper, what initially seemed like a straightforward case of jealousy and greed begins to take on a much darker tone. A hidden romance exposed. Poirot's questions lead him to a shocking revelation. Ursula Bourne and Ralph Patton, the troubled stepson of Roger Ackroyd, were secretly married. It's a love story shrouded in secrecy, hidden from the world, and most certainly from Roger himself. Ursula, a maid in the Ackroyd household, had kept her true relationship with Ralph a closely guarded secret. But Poirot, with his unrelenting pursuit of the truth, uncovers the hidden romance, revealing a powerful motive for the murder. Ursula, who had always appeared shy and demure, suddenly becomes a far more complex character. She had been deeply in love with Ralph, and it's clear that this secret marriage had been her only hope to escape the shadows of her past. But if her marriage to Ralph had been discovered, it would have shattered the carefully constructed world she had built around her connection to the Ackroyd family, her role as a maid, and the possibility of gaining something more from her position. Poirot pieces it together. Their secret relationship wasn't just one of passion, it was one of necessity. Ralph Patton, despite his charm and good looks, had always been a man in danger of losing everything, and Ursula had quietly sided with him, concealing their marriage to protect him from further disgrace. But in the wake of Roger's death, Ursula's actions now seemed more suspicious than ever. What role had she played in the events of that night? And what secrets was she still hiding? Ralph Peyton framed for murder. Ralph Peyton, who had been missing ever since Roger Ackroyd's murder, is eventually found hiding, disheveled and desperate. He is caught in a trap of his own making, and the evidence that points to him as the killer is overwhelming. His motive seems clear: he stood to gain from his stepfather's death, and his violent behavior in the days leading up to the murder paints him as the perfect suspect. As Ralph is brought back to the estate and confronted with the evidence, he collapses under pressure, seeming to confirm his guilt. He even confesses, but Poirot isn't convinced. The confession is too neat, too much of a convenient solution. There's a deeper layer to this story, and Poirot knows that Ralph's guilt doesn't sit right. It's almost as if someone has staged the entire thing to frame him a perfect setup. Poirot's sharp intuition tells him this is not the end of the mystery, but only another twist in the tangled web of deceit. Ralph's confession doesn't feel genuine. It feels like someone is pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But who would go to such lengths to frame him? And why? The mysterious stranger. In the midst of the chaos, another intriguing detail comes to light. A mysterious stranger was seen lurking around the property on the night of the murder. No one seems to know who this person was, nor do they understand why they were there. Was this the killer, or someone connected to the blackmail that Roger had been subjected to? Several people report seeing the stranger, though their descriptions vary wildly. Some say it was a man in dark clothing. Others claim it was a shadowy figure, moving quickly through the garden or near the study. Could this person have been an accomplice, or perhaps a witness to the crime, someone who is now hiding their true identity for reasons only they understand? Poirot, ever meticulous, investigates this new lead, but it proves elusive. No one seems to know the stranger's identity, and those who do appear nervous and evasive when questioned. The question remains, why was the stranger there that night? What do they know that could shift the direction of the investigation completely? Poirot pushes forward, determined to track down this unknown figure. But with each passing day, the mystery only grows deeper and more convoluted. Was the mysterious stranger an innocent bystander, or are they connected to the murder in ways no one expected? Growing tension and uncertainty. The web of secrets around Ursula, Ralph, and the mysterious stranger grows more tangled by the hour. Poirot senses that the answer is too close for comfort. The pieces are coming together, but not in the way anyone expects. What Poirot knows for certain is that he must keep pushing forward, questioning everything, digging into every corner of this mystery. Every lie, every omission, every hidden truth has led him here, and the final piece of the puzzle is now within reach. But with every answer, more questions arise, and the stakes are higher than ever. As Poirot puts the finishing touches on his investigation, the pieces slowly begin to align. The strange behavior of Ursula, Ralph's involvement, the stranger who disappeared into the night, all of it starts to form a terrifying picture of what really happened that night. But the final truth, the one that will reveal the killer's identity and the true motive, is still hidden in plain sight. The shocking revelation. The air in the room is thick with tension as Poirot gathers all the suspects in the grand drawing room of Roger Ackroyd's estate. The storm outside seems to mirror the churning uncertainty inside, as Poirot's mind races, piecing together the labyrinth of lies, deception, and hidden motives that have been exposed over the past days. Poirot's grand reveal. Poirot stands before the group, his usual calm demeanor betraying no emotion, but his eyes burn with intensity. The investigation is at its peak, and this final moment is the culmination of his relentless pursuit of the truth. The tension is palpable. Each suspect in the room is visibly on edge, knowing that Poirot will soon uncover the secrets that they've desperately tried to keep hidden. I've heard your lies, seen your deceit, and now we stand on the precipice of the final revelation, Poirot announces, his voice steady but cutting through the silence like a blade. Every word seems to weigh heavy, making the suspects uneasy. His every move is calculated, each step a beat in the rhythm of the inevitable truth that's about to unfold. Poirot begins to dismantle the false leads, peeling away the layers of deceit one by one. The once mighty alibis begin to crumble under the weight of his scrutiny. Flora Ackroyd is revealed to have been hiding more than just her grief. Her desperation for her inheritance was not the only thing driving her. She was secretly in a relationship with Geoffrey Raymond, her uncle's loyal secretary. Their affair had been the final piece of a tangled web, but even that connection proved irrelevant in the end. Poirot's quick mind cuts through the distractions. Next, Parker the butler, who seemed so certain, so reliable. But his nervous shifts, his attempts to conceal the truth about his past relationship with Roger's family, become clearer. However, despite his lies and evasions, he wasn't the killer. Parker's guilt is deep but separate from the crime that shocked the household. Poirot moves on, dismissing him from suspicion with one sharp sentence. Each of the suspects, the missing Ralph Peyton, the secretive Ursula Bourne, the enigmatic Geoffrey Raymond, all eliminated, one, by Poirot's razor-sharp logic and evidence. He plays them like pieces on a chessboard, each move precise, each question expertly probing deeper. The room grows colder, the suspect's nerves becoming more frayed with every passing minute. The air thickens with anticipation as Poirot closes in on the final truth. The room is so still, it feels as though time itself has come to a halt. The audience holds its breath. This is the moment, the truth that will send shockwaves through everyone. The final twist. Dr. Shepherd is the murderer. Poirot's eyes lock onto Dr. James Shepherd. A ripple of tension sweeps through the room as Shepherd, the seemingly innocent local physician, begins to break out in a cold sweat. "Dr. Shepherd," Poirot says, his voice low but deliberate, "you have told us all that you were just a passive observer, that you were merely helping, but the truth is far darker than that, isn't it?" Dr. Shepherd shifts uncomfortably, his face turning pale. His previous calm demeanor evaporates as the truth begins to dawn. Poirot steps closer, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You blackmailed Mrs. Ferrars. She had her secrets, didn't she? She had committed a terrible crime years ago, crime that, if revealed, would ruin her. And you knew it. You forced her to take her own life, making it look like an accidental overdose. But when Roger Ackroyd found out, when he uncovered the truth about Mrs. Ferrars' past, you had no choice but to silence him as well, didn't you?" Dr. Shepherd's face contorts with guilt, his mouth trembling as his darkest secret is exposed. The mask falls, and the twisted reality begins to unfold. Poirot has stripped away every layer, revealing the unthinkable truth. Dr. Shepherd was not just an observer, he was the mastermind. But the bombshell doesn't end there. Poirot steps back, his gaze piercing, as he delivers the final revelation that shatters everything. The mysterious phone call, the one that claimed Roger Ackroyd, was still alive. It was a ruse, a trick to manipulate the timeline, to create confusion and cast doubt. "Dr. Shepherd, you made that call, didn't you? You wanted us to believe Roger was still breathing, to buy yourself some time to cover your tracks." The weight of the truth hits everyone in the room. They're stunned, speechless. It all falls into place: the lies, the deception, the meticulously crafted narrative. Poirot's eyes flicker with cold determination as he turns to face them. "And finally, this very narrative you have heard tonight, the one you are hearing now. In fact, it was written by Dr. Shepherd himself." Poirot continues, his voice rising with force. "He crafted this story to mislead everyone, including us. All the time, he has been writing his own account of these events, twisting the facts to make himself appear innocent, to hide his role in the murder. But I have seen through your falsehoods, Dr. Shepherd." Dr. Shepherd, broken and defeated, can no longer deny the truth. His confession is not just of murder, it is a confession of manipulation, deceit, and the meticulous control he had over everyone around him. He is the architect of the entire crime, having orchestrated Roger Ackroyd's death with cold, calculated precision. The final moment. The room is silent as the gravity of Poirot's words sinks in. The tension that has been building throughout the investigation suddenly crashes down. Everyone, including the audience, is left reeling. The realization that Dr. Shepherd, the trustworthy physician and narrator, was the mastermind all along, is nothing short of a stunning revelation. Poirot turns to face the audience, his expression serious, his voice steady. The truth is not always what we wish it to be, but it is always what we need it to be. Dr. Shepherd is taken away, his world collapsing around him, but Poirot remains unmoved. The room is still in shock, and the audience is left to grapple with the enormity of the truth. The case is closed, but the aftermath, sheer betrayal of trust, the intricacies of the deception is something that will linger long after the final words have been spoken. The climax, justice served. The atmosphere in the room has shifted, the weight of Dr. Shepherd's confession still hanging heavy. Poirot, the master of deduction, has revealed every layer of this convoluted mystery, exposing Shepherd's sinister role in the deaths of both Mrs. Ferrars and Roger Ackroyd. But even as the case comes to its stunning conclusion, Poirot's work is far from over. Justice, in its rawest form, must still be delivered. The clock ticks loudly in the tense silence. Poirot stands before Dr. Shepherd, who is now a broken man. Shepherd's earlier bravado is gone, his body slumped in defeat, the reality of his actions weighing him down. But Poirot is not a man who seeks vengeance. Instead, he offers Dr. Shepherd a choice, one that will ultimately seal his fate. "You have two options, mon ami," Poirot says, his voice cutting through the silence with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "You may face a public trial, where your crimes will be laid bare for all to see. The shame, the humiliation it will follow you for the rest of your days. Or," Poirot's gaze hardens, a shadow crossing his face, "you may choose to end it yourself, a final escape, if you will, from the consequences you have so carefully avoided." Shepherd, his eyes wide, his mind spinning, knows what his options truly mean. A trial would lead to the destruction of his carefully constructed life, his career, his reputation. The fear of public exposure, of facing the people he once called colleagues, friendships him like a freight train. And yet the idea of escape, of slipping away quietly, offers a sense of control, a way out of the endless spiral of his guilt and his fall from grace. For a long moment, Dr. Shepherd stares at Poirot, searching for an ounce of compassion or mercy, but Poirot's eyes remain unwavering. He has seen enough. This is the moment of truth. Shepherd slowly nods. "I'll take my leave, on my own terms," he murmurs, his voice breaking.